10 Best Humphrey Bogart Movies. Compared to the stars of today, Humphrey Bogart looked different, he talked different. This was not a man of this time, which tracks for a star born in the 1800s. The icon's wealthy New York family members were direct descendants of the city's first Dutch settlers and welcomed baby Bogie to the world on Christmas Day 1899. Like many actors, Bogart started on Broadway. He made his stage debut in 1921 playing a Japanese waiter who had one line. Through the 1930s, he would become a respected character actor, but it took him 20 years to land the role that changed film history. Spade in John Huston's 1941 film, The Maltese Falcon. Number 10. The Petrified Forest. You have to admire the studio filmmaking of the 1930s. The Petrified Forest is set largely in the deserts of Arizona but takes place entirely inside a Warner Brothers soundstage. The plot follows a penniless European hitchhiker who meets a plucky small-town girl with big dreams played by Bette Davis. He's left the grandeur of the old world for a rugged American adventure and gets his wish when he runs into a ruthless gangster on the lam, played by Humphrey Bogart. Before Bogie was a leading man, these characters' roles were the actor's niche. Bogart is somewhat underused, but this intimate drama, set almost entirely inside a rural gas station, was so compelling that it vaulted the actor and his sad eyes into the roles that put his name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Eager to escape with the Spade, and Duke Montee, vicious leader of a notorious band of gunmen, hiding out after a gang massacre. In the short space of 24 eventful hours, these...
Number 9. The Big Sleep. Howard Hawks' The Big Sleep, released in 1946, based on the novel by legendary hard-boiled detective writer Raymond Chandler. The story is so convoluted that during filming, Hawks famously contacted the author to clarify a plot point. Even Chandler wasn't sure what had happened, notes The Guardian. Neo-noir-like The Usual Suspects have twisty plots too, but counterintuitively, they nimbly jump around to make the exposition clear. But here Humphrey Bogart's motor-mouth double talk is your only guide to the long list of suspects that propelled the mystery forward. This is also Bogart's second outing with Lauren Bacall, following To Have or Have Not. The duo's on-screen chemistry is so mystery. Though Bogart was 45 and Bacall was 20. They were married 3 months after filming. Number 8. The Harder They Fall. In 1956, Humphrey Bogart released his final film, The Harder They Fall. He died 7 months later, according to the New York Times. The second star lacks his usual pep, but if Bogart was feeling unwell, he channeled it into the most understated, naturalistic performance of his career. In the film, he's Eddie Willis, a New York sports writer who becomes a promoter for a heavyweight boxing prospect with the stature of a Greek god, but the punching power of a Greek salad. Willis justifies becoming a fight-fixing grifter for this paper tiger with one of his signature streetwise musings. Money is money, he says. What does it matter where you get it? But as it turns out, corruption is a slippery slope.
George, you don't know your own strength, and I'm going to show you what a bum you really are.
Number 7. To Have and Have Not. 1944's To Have and Have Not came 2 years after Casablanca and might as well be a prequel. So just before the events of its famous predecessor, all the elements are there. World War II, the French, a mysterious dame, a swanky bar with a piano player who takes requests, and Bogart running a local business while desperately trying to appear neutral to the Nazis' court. Based on a novel by Ernest Hemingway, Howard Hawks' To Have and Have Not was made when the actual Bros. Warner, as Variety called them in 1943, were still running the studio. The film was derided as a Casablanca copy, but became a big hit anyway. Visually, it's a film noir, but it isn't all grit. There's a touching relationship between Bogart and his Rami sidekick, an alcoholic but avuncular figure who commands Bogart's loyalty for no self-interest.
I don't know yet.
Number 6. The African Queen. Humphrey Bogart.
Up into the forbidding majesty of the great Madre range.
Number 5. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. In John Huston's The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Humphrey Bogart plays Dobbs, a compulsive gambler in 1920s Mexico on a serious cold streak. That's when he meets a like-minded wanderer named Curtin and an old prospector, Howard, played by director John Huston's father. Walter, I know what gold does to a man's soul, Howard warns, but the three ignore this foreshadowing and set out into the wilds of the Mexican deserts to search for their fortune.
Shoulder to shoulder against the forces of nature, only to find their greatest enemy is human nature.
Shut your trap! Shut up or I'll smash your head flat!
Go ahead, throw it. Without me, you two would die here more miserable than rats.
Leave him alone. Can't you see that the old man's nuts?
Number 4. In a Lonely Place. Humphrey Bogart and Alfred Hitchcock never worked together, but 1950's In a Lonely Place in 1950 is the actor's most obviously Hitchcockian thriller. With nods to films like Rope, Bogart plays a semi-washed-up Hollywood screenwriter with a hair-trigger temper and hilariously phallic name, Dixon Still. This talented but troubled Tinseltown cat becomes the obvious suspect when he takes home a coat-check girl who winds up murdered. Still treats becoming the prime suspect in a violent sling like a joke, and Bogart's trademark unflappability suddenly reads like a killer's cluelessness. A film noir hero is always flawed, but generally Bogart's bad boys don't mistreat women. He intrigues them, flirts with them, pours them drinks, and lights their cigarettes.
You know judo. You know how to kill a person. Go ahead, brub. Squeeze harder.
I left his office feeling as though he were trying to warn me. I came here because I want...
Number 3. The Maltese Falcon. The Maltese Falcon was first published as a serialized story in the pulpy weekly periodical Black Mask. The magazine was created to subsidize the publisher's more highbrow literary magazine, Smart Set, but of course it's the gritty detective stories that have endured. 1941's The Maltese Falcon made both Humphrey Bogart and director John Huston Hollywood institutions. Arthur Edison's iconic cinematography, inspired by German Expressionism, more or less invented the shadowy noir aesthetic. Bogart plays Private Eye Sam Spade, a quintessential American anti-hero. PIs are the era's chivalric urban cowboys, like earlier figures of revolutionary lore, group that includes everyone from George Washington to the white-hatted gunslingers of the American West that operate just outside the law. That's what it takes to find the goods.
You may have the Falcon, but we certainly have you.
Number 2. The Caine Mutiny. In 1954, the Caine Mutiny, Bogart plays a hard-charging World War II Navy captain who takes command of a ragtag ship whose code of conduct has fallen below the waterline. But when it turns out that it's really the captain who isn't seaworthy, the crew faces a life-or-death dilemma. All large ships are societies unto themselves, and the Caine Mutiny is a study of power on board of a floating fiefdom. Bogart's commander Queeg thinks military regulations and his own erratic caprices should rule. But he's an emperor with no clothes. In war, it's hard to survive that level of detachment from reality.
Academy Award winning From Here to Eternity.
And finally, number 1, Casablanca. 1942's Casablanca may be the best film ever made, but it's better to think of it as the greatest achievement of Hollywood's golden age. That's not to say that it's perfect. Bogart plays Rick, a straight-talking American expat running a classy bar in the North African port town of Casablanca, the inspiration for the most Mos Eisley spaceport in Star Wars. Rick is a former freedom fighter turned self-interested businessman in this wretched hive of scum and villainy. The incandescent Ingrid Bergman plays the woman who ghosted him years earlier. When she shows up looking to escape Hitler's thugs, Rick refuses and has a big cry about it. The iconic tough guy won't lift a finger against the Nazis' occupation because a girl once hurt his feelings. This puzzling flaw in Rick's tough guy facade is merely his dilemma. After all, he must refuse his initial call to action on some pretense. And if you can peer through layers of silk gauze covering the lens to get a clean look at Bergman, maybe Rick's disappointment isn't so far-fetched. Besides, Rick's job is to embody American neutrality. This film was made in 1942, 2 years before D-Day, and Rick's reluctant stands in for America's initial isolationist instincts. When our hero finally decides to join the fight, it's the beginning of something very beautiful indeed.